Yeah, I'll try and get him. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Okay, the girls have to smile at the camera. There you go. Come on. Barbie's all worried about this activity.
Ray, how are you gonna get out of the way? Stand right here.
Oh!
I said we've been waiting 50 years.
Surprise, surprise. Remember this one? Go ahead.
Oh, you missed one here. Hi, Jim. Oh, excuse me. I heard you had somebody had their babies.
How are you, Chelsea? That's not a very keen girl.
Before we begin the meal, we got a few words to be said by William Jarvis. You all know who he is? And his Uncle Bill.
I don't I don't know too much about handling one of these microphones, because God gave me a loud voice to start with. Let's see who's in the back there. Who's that? Jennifer? Can you hear me all right back there? Can you hear me without the microphone? Can you hear me without the microphone? Put the microphone back. I can't talk without my hands. Barbie asked that I be the master of ceremony for this occasion, and I don't know what kind of master I'm going to be, but I've got the voice to do the job if God will grant me the words. So, you'll be hearing from me as the festivities progress during the night, as I introduce other people to you. She wanted me to give the invocation, and I don't know exactly what manner that I'll offer this blessing, but I believe, for the time being at least, and and we'll get the butterflies out, and we'll be going, and I believe I'd look you in the eye and talk to you and tell you some of my own feelings about this occasion. It's been 50 years short coming, Sam. And as you think about gospel songs, I guess I would have to think about precious memories, how they linger, if I was going to pick any one song. And Dr. Cochran and I went to Scotland White about 2 months ago for some type of physical. For 280 pounds and 68 years old, I could have any one of a zillion things that'd be killing me. But anyway, I got a pretty good report other than my blood sugar. And the doctor, as he called me in for the final explanation of various readings and so forth, told me I had a cholesterol count of 117. And he says, your blood sugar is a little high, but I'm not going to put you on a diet. I can see that you like to eat too well. He said, what you need to do is take more exercise. And I said, well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have a brother-in-law in New Hampshire who's the most self-disciplined individual I ever saw in my life. He wouldn't eat anything without first reading the label. He'll know the calories, the cholesterol, the source of the fat, the fiber, and all that goes with it. And yet he has difficulty in keeping his cholesterol below 200. So I have to believe that cholesterol must be part, at least, hereditary. He said, you got it. You did a good job of picking your parents. I only told you that to tell you this, that I also did a hell of a good job picking my sister.
Yay.
I've seen brothers and sisters who see the shining sea and from barter to barter. And all of you have similar experiences. If I could go from sea to shining sea and from barter to barter, I'd go back into what I got. No one can be more loving, more caring, more compassionate, and more forgiving than she is. And we have a closeness that many can emulate, but none can copy. And it's not orchestrated, it comes naturally. It's been easy for us. If we disagree, we don't get the script. We don't get unkind, we don't say unkind words. So all of it comes naturally. And we try to convey that love to our children so they'll have the same thing between them. My children and her children, cousins who could be like brothers. And I'll tell you what she did for me. She did a good job of picking me a brother-in-law. And I'll be forever grateful. Barbie called to ask me a few days ago about the details of their courtship and about the wedding and a few things. And I got a fair memory. But I'll just tell you that I went blank, and I called her back and I said, Barbie, I just can't tell you about that courtship. I just have to say this. It was a courtship of correspondence, and it was almost like love at first letter. And I'm the impatient one, not Lowell and not sister. But that impatience and impulse worked out and has performed miracles. And I'm so grateful for it, and I'm so grateful and thankful that all of us can be here together tonight and to enjoy this experience, and I know that they are grateful. And those are the blessings that I think of, and I thank God for all the blessings He's bestowed on our family and for the friends like you that He's given to each of us, and for this country of which we've all been a part. You know, it was Henry Van Dyke, I think, that wrote these lines. It's good to see the old world and travel up and down among the famous palaces and cities of renown, to admire the crumbling castles and statues of the kings. But now, I think I've had enough of antiquated things. So it's home again. Home again. America for me. My heart is turning home again. That's where I long to be, in the land of youth, freedom, beyond the ocean bars, where the air is full of sunlight and the flag is full of stars. Now, London is a man's town. There's power in the air. Paris is a woman's town with flowers in her hair. And it's sweet to dream in this. And it's great to study Rome. But when it comes to living, there is no place like home. I like the German fir woods and green battalions, really. I love the gardens of Versailles with flashing fountains filled. But oh, to hold your hand, my dear, and ramble for a day in the friendly western woodland where nature has her way. I know that Europe's wonderful, but the people look back. past is too much with her and the people looking back. For the glory of the present is to make the future free. We love our land for what she is and what she is to be. I want to ship this westward bound to plow the rolling sea to the blessed land of room enough beyond the ocean bars, where the air is full of sunlight and the flag is full of stars. When I go to bed tonight, and I hope you can too, I'm going to say, God bless America again. And I'm going to say, God, I thank you for my sister. I thank you for my love for Lowell. I thank you for my nieces and nephews, the closest that we all have, and the friends that you can be. Now bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies and our souls to thy service. Thank you. Into the music, or vice versa. Anyway, after Lowell's marriage and the children were here, and the years passed, and you know, your family had a way of expanding. So they got a few added children as time went on, and I'm going to call on one of them right now that I fondly call Blue. His name is Mark Bluestein. Some of you may know him better than I, but he wanted to give a few comments here. So whether you want to call it a toast or a speech or apology, I don't know what he's going to call it.
I don't know how many people are familiar with that theme song, but for the ones who aren't, that's theme song from Leave It to Beaver. There's a show in the late 50s, early 60s, and right at the height of its popularity is when I started to know the Wilkes fairly well, and there are a lot of similar things that were on that show that I could relate to with the Wilkes. The first one was the fact that Ward Cleaver and Mr. Wilkes were the exact same suits almost every day for work. As he would walk out to go to work, June Cleaver, like Mrs. Wilkes, would be there with her pearls on and her dress with this humongous briefcase that must have weighed 100 pounds to kiss him goodbye, and off he went to work. But the constant factor between myself and the Wilkes was this character in the show named Eddie Haskell. Now Eddie, people might not know him, he was a friend of the boys, Wally and the Beef. And to put it bluntly, he was somewhat obnoxious, but at times extremely polite and courteous, and always quick with a compliment, but only to parents. Because as soon as he got away from those parents, he would turn into this wise guy that had a penchant for causing trouble, but never getting blamed for it. Everyone else would get the blame. So a typical conversation between myself and the Wilkes would go, "Oh, good evening, Mrs. Wilkes. Isn't that a lovely dress you have on? And what's that baking in the oven? It smells so delicious." And I actually was fishing for an invite for dinner. And then I would see Mr. Wilkes and say, "Oh, Mr. Wilkes, how was your day at work?" Like I really knew what he was doing, just trying to be polite. And then I wouldn't be out of sight or sound with him, and I'd be running downstairs to see Ray and trying to cause all kinds of havoc. But like many TV shows, they eventually end. So the Cleavers were rid of their Haskells. Well, the Wilkes weren't so fortunate, because I was just one of many Haskells that was in their life. Billy came along into his teenage years, and He brought along 2 Haskells with him. They're not here this evening. Mark Doran and Bob Maroney, who made me look like a rank amateur. And then there was a lull there during Barbara's teenage years, but then Barbara went away to college and brought home a young man, Andy, who later became her husband. He was good. He was in between myself and Doran and Maroney. It wasn't the best, because they were saving the best for last. And it's kind of crossed the gender line. You don't have to be a male any longer to be an Eddie Haskell. I don't see her. Well, at any rate, Ray's wife Ann, who also happens to be my sister-in-law, is the Eddie Haskell Supreme. There's no one does it better than Andy.
And the mother of your niece,
Well, I'm getting to that, because now the Wilkes have grandchildren, and we had an opportunity to have Ben and Chelsea yesterday, and I think Ian's passed on good Haskell characteristics to young Ben. The example was that Ben came in yesterday, and we hadn't seen him for a while, so we gave him a bunch of candy and little gifts, and he was so excited, saying how lucky he was to get all these presents and little gifts, and then 2 minutes later, he's taking a sandwich and throwing it at his little sister. So you haven't escaped the Haskells quite yet. One of the other endearing qualities of Eddie Haskell, or anyone like them, is that they never left. They always were around. And I'm sure there were many times Mr. Wilkes would tear up over his magazines or one of the 10 newspapers that he might be reading during the day, and look at me and say to himself, "Christ, doesn't that Bluestein kid ever go home? He's always here." Well, there were reasons why I was always here. The first one was the fact that you raised a large family of children, and to look at the 3 boys especially, they really haven't missed too many meals. So there was always abundance. There was always an abundance of food at the Wilkes household. Another reason was the Wilkes always seemed to leave. And they wouldn't leave just for the evening. They'd go away for a weekend, a week, in a month at times. And they would leave Ray in charge of the household. So as a teenager, when someone's parents aren't home, automatically means a party. But I'm sure Mrs. Wilkes rested easily, knowing that I was there, making sure not many people entered your household, nothing stronger than Coca-Cola might have been served, and I made sure everyone behaved responsibly. I'm glad you're filming this, Ray, and I'm going to try to be a little bit serious right now. Everyone here that knows the Wilkes knows how hospitable and gracious and warm that they are to people who enter their home. But what makes them a little bit special to me is the fact that no matter how busy they might have been or how many other people that they might have been entertaining at the time, they always would take the time out to sit down and talk to me and showed a genuine concern on how my life was going. I don't think I've ever had a chance to thank you for that, but it's greatly appreciated. And just to wrap things up, I think I can speak for all of your children's friends. Congratulate you on your 50 years of marriage, and I hope you have many, many more years together.
So Billy and that funny gentleman, I'm probably going to be dull, but I wanted to share with you some very fond memories that I have had all my life with the association of my cousin Lowell and Rosemary, cousins. And as my hero, Bob Hope, would say, borrow from him, thanks for the memories. I think back on the days when Lowell used to come down to San Antonio as a youngster, and my brothers and I used to play touch football in my father and mother's side yard. We look forward to that many times a year. And when Lowell was later a student at the University of Texas in the 30s, I visited with him up there, and we have many happy memories of that. And later, when my wife Jenny and I were students at the university, and Rosemary was up there in 1940, and then when we got married in 41, we went to West Point on a honeymoon, or to West Point with Niagara Falls. And Lowell was a cadet at West Point, and he showed us a marvelous time. Took us all around the academy. We went to the Army and Navy game, the dance afterwards, and then later when he was stationed at Sandia base in, was it Albuquerque? Albuquerque, New Mexico. We visited with them out there. That was in the mid-40s. And then we came up, let's see, in the later period, they came down to San Antonio. We used to go back and forth. We've been up here a number of times to New England. They've been down to Texas many times. And we shared in their children's weddings. And we kept a real close relationship, and we treasure that. And great memories in my life and my wife's life, all the times that we've had together. And when they came down to San Antonio one time, we took them to the Rio Grande Valley. I think it was the first time they'd ever been to the south part of Texas. And we went over to Matamoros, Mexico, and introduced Rosa Maria to the Mexican way of life. She learned to shop at the market, a little bargaining. Quite an experience, wasn't it?
From Brownsville.
And then to share in all these wonderful memories of their children's weddings has just really been super in our lives, and they have a wonderful family. And my wife and I are real particular with being associated, the privilege of knowing them and being up here and invited to participate in this wonderful occasion, and the best of everything.
Alan, you should make a speech.
You know, anything for a break from politics. I don't know what they're going to show on TV when this election's over. And I, for one, you know, will be ready for some kind of change. I don't know what kind it'll be. Can you hear me all right back there? I'm not endorsing either one. I'm going to get around to the beating the coconut in just a second. But I'm kind of tired of seeing Margaret Tutwiler. I'm a little bit tired of Marlon Fitzwater. A robot could take either one of them's place. And yet when I look at Bill Clinton, I've been shocked to realize that he may be the next president. I wake up at night sometimes and I say to myself, well, he can't love America like Billy Jarvis does. He hasn't been through the Depression of the 30s. He doesn't know what it means to earn friends, earn friendships like I do. He can't thank the Lord that he had the experience of being in the South Pacific or in the jungles of New Guinea, and I didn't do anything while I was over there, so I don't want any credit, or where the others were in Europe. But he hadn't had those experiences. Money won't buy those experiences. I know he went to Oxford, and I know he's a Rhodes Scholar. But when I look at him, you know, I think that he might be a good Imodium salesman. You know, where the fellow and his wife goes out and he's relieved of that, he takes that dose and he doesn't have to come back to the bathroom. He looks like to me to be good at selling Imodium. And sometimes when I see the National Defense man that's on his side, what's his name, Admiral Krause, he looks like to me that he's had an overdose of Imodium and now has an impaction and somebody's going to have to sell him some perforated eggs. So there's the pros and cons. I told you that story to tell you this. Because I've gone around the world, and Mark Morris, I came across Canada the other day, and I was so impressed with all the logging and all the home construction and the little children crossing the highway, getting off the school buses, going back to their homes. And I know their substance comes from the logging industry. So it's not the spotted owl I'm worried about, and it's not the snail darter at the TVA that I'm worried about. I don't want to be gored by Albert. And it's not that little lizard down in New Mexico I'm worried about. Let me tell you something. The rare and endangered species, the rare and endangered species that I'm worried about is character and integrity. Lowell and sister represent that kind of character and integrity, and I'm proud of it. So we'll talk this going.
We always did anything about when he retired, what was he going to do? Bill says, well, you're going to get besides reorganized, right?
He makes copies of everything.
We get copies of everything. And see if copies.
He's got his own copy machine, doesn't he, at home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He stamps everything copies.
Copies of everything, and he's got the record.
This is the oldest of the children. Lynn Wilkes, all of you know him.
Thank you. Unlike the previous speakers, I'm not an extemporaneous speaker, so I put together a little poem that I'd like to read in honor of the occasion. So it's a little bit long, but 50 years is kind of a long time to cover. It was on the 25th of January 1943. You started your 50 years of marriage history. From the land of waist-high cotton began a marital journey not to be forgotten. Your love glowed from afar as Dad went off to war. After the war, you helped Len, gave your first son Lynn. According to rumor, the first baby boomer. In 1949, you read your Army order card saying report for 2 years at Harvard Yard. There you gained an MBA and a second son named Ray. For lost Army friends you can search at your next stop in Falls Church. Then whistling your in the Army stanzas, off you went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Having seen one too many gopher hole, Dad was soon off on his way to Seoul. Mom and the boys got a dog named Lassie and 8 Sunday dinners cooked by Tassie. Back together in 55, again to Washington we did drive, where not far from Capitol Hill came your third son named Bill. With 3 boys to keep in line, from the Army you did resign. A look at the astrological charts said Dad should sell screw machine parts. Ending your transient living mode, you settled securely at 4 Childs Road. In 1963 came anniversary 20. You might have said the 3 sons are plenty. Instead you said life would be a mess without Barbara for our little sis. You helped us get through the Lexington schools by grilling us daily on proper grammar rules. By 1973, things were looking pretty good, so you bought a summer home called Perrywood. In 1977, Massachusetts taxes were becoming so high, you left for license plates saying, live free or die. For 15 years, you've made your home in Amherst, though escaping to Arizona when winter is worse. As the years have gone by, you watched and you saw Meg, Linda, and Ann become daughters-in-law, followed by Andy, who agonizes whether UT can beat Baylor, and 6 grandchildren, Tina, Jessica, Casey, Ben, Chelsea, and Taylor. On this very special occasion, they join me, Mom and Dad, in saying that you're the best parents and grandparents we could have had.
That's great. No smooching out there.
Can you hear me all right?
Yo.
You know, there are not many new jokes anymore. I thought I'd have to just give you a little break while we were waiting on the next two speakers to get up here, next two toasters. So I thought I'd tell you a story about a fellow that frequented one of the sports bars. You know, when I was a youngster, we didn't know what beer was much of it after 20 or 21 years old, but now they learned it at an early age, and they congregate these sports bars. And down in Texas, we have a very popular sports bar in Dallas, and there's a fellow that wore a big hat, and he was standing at the bar, and he was about 6'6" and weighed about 260 pounds, and everybody reverently referred to him as Bubba. If you heard this joke, we'll laugh anyway. Anyway, Bubba was there imbibing at a beer late one afternoon at the sports bar, and a fellow that was a stranger walked up, and he bedded right up next to Bubba, and he ordered a beer, and they engaged each other in conversation, and not long after that, a diminutive little fellow walks down the line, and he said, "Hi, Bubba," and Bubba said, "Hi, Ross." The man moves on, and the fellow that was standing next to Bubba, he says, "Who was that fellow?" He says, "His face looked mighty familiar." He said, "Oh, it's old Ross." I said, "That's Ross Perot." He said, "Ross Perot? You don't mean the guru that started electronic data systems, the multi-billionaire that's entertained the idea of running for president? You don't mean you know about Ross Perot?" He said, "I know everybody. I know everybody." And it wasn't long after that till another fellow walked in, and he said, "Hi, Bob." And he said, "Hi, Bubba." He said, "Who was that?" He said, "His face looks familiar too." He said, "I think y'all seen him on the TV screen somewhere." He said, "Oh, that's Bob Strauss." "You mean," he said, "Robert Strauss? The ambassador to Russia?" I almost called him something else. I don't have anything against Robert Strauss. I like Robert Strauss. my tongue's too twisted. It might have just an extra touch of wine to it. But yes, he said, "I know them all." So he continued, and finally, Sid Bass went by, and he said, "Who was that?" I said, "That's old Sid." I said, "That's Sid Bass." He said, "You mean Sid Risson Bass? The heir to Sid Risson's fortune, the outfit that John Connolly used to manage?" He said, "Yeah, that's one of the boys grown up." And said, "They parlayed that into billions." And that's Sid Bass. He said, "All friends of mine." He said, "I know everybody." 2 or 3 nights later, they bedded up to that bar again, and this fellow said, "Bubba, you can't know everybody." He said, "I'll tell somebody you can't know." He said, "Who's that?" He said, "You don't know Clint Eastwood." He said, "You mean Clint Eastwood, the actor, the Mayor Cardinal?" He said, "Sure, I know him." He said, "Well, you can't prove it." He said, "Well, if you want to buy the plane ticket to San Francisco, we'll go out there and rent a car, and we'll go out to Carmel, I'll knock on the door, and he'll come to the door, and you'll find that I know him." So I've got to speed this up in the interest of time. So they knocked on the door, and here's this tall movie actor came to the door, and Bubba said, "Hi, Clint." He said, "Bubba, what brings you to San Francisco?" So they go through this field, they go back to Dallas, and 2 or 3 days later, they met up to the bar again, and the fella knew he was going to stump Bubba. He said, "You can't know Burt Reynolds." He said, "You mean the Burt Reynolds, the actor that lives in St. Petersburg?" So they went through all this circumstance again. They got out there, and sure enough, Burt Reynolds said, "Bubba, I haven't seen you in 3 or 4 years. What are you doing in St. Petersburg?" So he kept challenging them with these characters, and he kept knowing them. Later on, he sees Bubba at the bar, and he says, "Bubba, I got somebody that you just can't know." He said, "Who's that?" He said, you don't know the Pope. He said, sure I know the Pope, but you wouldn't want to be out playing fair in Rome. He said, yes I would, I'm going to bluff you. He said, you're going to prove you're bluffing? I'm going to pay the fare to Rome and said, we're going down to the Vatican, and you got to prove to me that you know the Pope. So they sailed off to Rome, they got in the car and went down to the Vatican, just people standing everywhere out front. Bubba said, I should have been more honest with you. I should have told you that I'm not going to be able to introduce you to the Pope. I'll prove that I know him, but security regulations are real tight here. You stand right out here in front of the Vatican now, and you keep your eye on that veranda right up there, and I'm going to walk out, and the Pope's going to have his arms around me. So the fellow kept staring, and a little while, Bubba and the Pope came out. And about that time, Bubba looked down, and this friend of his fainted, just passed out cold on the sidewalk. And he worried Bubba, he didn't know what he was dead. So Bubba rushes down to see him, and he shakes him and pours a little water on him, and he said, did you get to see me with the Pope? He said, yeah, I saw you. But about the time y'all came out, said some fellow standing next to me said, hey, who's that up there with Bubba?
That is great. He told that well.
Now, I'm going to turn this microphone over to another of Lowell San Antonio cousins who now resides in California, Dr. Larry Goldbeck. Larry, come take it over right there.
Thank you very much, Billy. When Billy says, do you want to say a few words? I said, geez, I said, an anesthesiologist, an opportunity to talk to somebody awake? You bet I want to do that. First off, I'd like to say, on behalf of myself and my wife Nancy, thanks to Barbie and to Lynn and Ray and Bill for making this opportunity available to all of us. And I think it's just absolutely great. And to pull it off with such secrecy is just amazing. And I'm sure that all the prevarications that have come down the line in the last month or two will be forgiven. If you have seen the little picture out here, I was the little brat in the tuxedo. This was made 1 month after my 11th birthday. So I remember with fond memories, January 25th, 1943, as a very, very cold day, probably the first time I'd ever been in any sort of an event where I got to wear a formal suit. And I think probably it was the coldest day that I'd ever experienced. We were in Hubbard, it was probably about 15 degrees, and the day was quite an event. The thing I'd like to bring before you is the closeness that I have felt toward my first cousin Lowell and Rosemary through the years. Everybody has favorite relatives and favorite cousins and uncles and so forth. And I can honestly say that through the years, this has been a situation with them. We have just totally enjoyed our relationship through the years. When I was a little boy, Lowell would come down, and I'd look forward for days and days in advance when my Aunt Eleanor and Uncle Lowell and Lowell Jr. would come down and visit in San Antonio. And he would pull me around the backyard in my little wagon, and he would throw the football to me and do all these things. Was sort of a additional brother, and being the eldest, certainly he was a role model to me in many ways, fortunately. Certainly academically, I was impressed with Lowell's abilities, and military-wise, I also pursued a military career and will shortly be retiring in the Naval Reserve. So I would like to say hearty thanks to my wonderful cousins, Rosemary and Lowell.
A boyhood friend of Lowell's and mine. Most of you might have had the opportunity to meet him. If not, be sure you do during the dancing period that follows and the time that follows. I want to call on now my friend Judge Sam Johnson from Hubbard, Texas. He now lives in Austin. He's with his wife June, and my pleasure to introduce you, Sam Johnson.
I'd like to try to give you a little bit different perspective, maybe, from that you've heard before. It is true that through all of my life, I have known these two people. I don't want to dwell on that. And I've lived right across the street from the Jarvises, 2 blocks from the Wilkses, and all of that, and have known them as dear, close friends for all of this time. But I want to give you a different perspective again. We've been talking a lot about these people from Hubbard. These people from Hubbard, and when we were in Hubbard and so forth. I dare say the vast majority of you have never been to Hubbard. Let me put that in perspective for you. Hubbard is a community then and now of about 1,500 or 1,600 people. I would say one of your more modest apartment complexes would have that many people inside of one building. It is a very, very small community where everybody knows everybody, and they've known it forever. My folks knew, my dad knew these people's dad and their granddad, and before that, and before that. So let me tell you about the big influence first on one of these honorees, and that is Rosemary Jarvis. The dominating influence, I think, in her life was her mother, a person named Oni Tanner, who married Ray Jarvis. A beautiful, beautiful lady, as I remember in my childhood, and she was truly that. A compassionate, genteel, lovely, lovely person that never said anything bad about any living human being, maybe animals included. She was a dear, dear person. Her father was quite different. Ray Jarvis was a powerful man, as all the Jarvises were. Powerful figure, muscular, stout as a bull. Stout as a bull. Incredibly brilliant. Incredibly brilliant. With figures. And Ray Jarvis, Billy Jarvis, has the same sort of capacity for remembering poems and speeches and writings, sayings of other people. In any event, it's Rosemary's mother that I wanted to tell you about, because she was such a great influence, not only on Rosemary, her only daughter, but all of those who came in contact with her. Now, on the other side, we have something a bit different. We see a lady that was the dominating influence in Lowell Jr. Wilkes' life. That's Eleanor Wilkes. Quite a different person. Quite a different person. Dynamic, outgoing, a flowing, life is beautiful, today is wonderful, I like you, you like me, everything is grand. You can do anything that you want to do. Anything that you want to do. And you can do it right now if you put your mind to it. Let's go start right this minute. She was the first, along perhaps with my mother, to do a lot of things in Hubbard that are now sort of frowned on. First to smoke cigarettes, and the fashion of rolling down her hose and all of that sort of thing. Well, they were into it big time. First to go to the horse races, and I believe the two of them would have not only gambled on horses, but a parking meter if one was there or not. They had absolute confidence that was terribly misjustified. But she was a dynamic person. And let me tell you one story about her. May the 8th, 1962, Eleanor Wilkes was going to, we lived in Hillsboro, the county seat, about 30 miles from Waco, and she was going to Waco, Texas, for a trip on the train to judge a flower show in California. You would know she would. She was just up and gone. She heard on the radio about the birth of our son on that day. She heard it on the KHBR News from Hillsborough, Texas. She changed her route a little. She went directly to the hospital, Hillcrest Hospital, and said, I want to see Sam Johnson's son. Sam and June Johnson's son. And they said, well, you can't do that. You're not a member of the family. She said, I certainly am. I'm his grandmother. I'm his grandmother. And she just brusquely put them aside, and she was the first person to see our son. Before June saw it, before I saw it. And she has been much like the real grandmother that he did not know. A lovely, dynamic person that was an influence on Lowell Wilkes and all that knew her. Thank you.
Sister and Lowell have a lot of friends here, and we're not trying to single anybody out. If I see a hand, if we see somebody else got something they want to contribute, it doesn't always have to be good. Let me tell you, everybody in life makes a few mistakes. You know, sometimes you have a path you got to follow, and the road might fork, and you might get off on the wrong fork for a little while. It's easy to get off on the wrong road up here in New England. It's not like living in Hubbard. When you get it leaving Hubbard going to Mount Com, you go to Mount Com. And when you go through Mount Com, you go past the Judd, and then you go right on to Waco. And if you go back east, you go from Hubbard to Dawson, and Dawson to Carson County. But to go from 6 miles here, you got to go 30 miles out of the way. You got to take loops. You got to get Route 293 and E and 101 and 101A. And I don't know, but one time in the sister's life, she had a flirt with a life of crime. Just before her graduation, she and her group of friends, and she wasn't really guilty, except, you know, she might not have stoned Stephen, but she might have held his coat, the coat of the stoners. And on that particular day, she and a few friends riding around had captured in some manner a skunk. She might have furnished a sack because my dad was in the grain business, and back there we had what we call tow sacks, burned out bags. And they took that skunk, and somebody, the baccalaureate was going to be in the Methodist church that she and I belonged to since our youth, and somebody turned that skunk loose in that church. Huh? Well, it didn't keep you bad, but Lysol and other kind of disinfectants and going up there and scrubbing the thing. You know, we all have a few roadblocks on our way. And that was a matter when the Lord's had his frivolous days, and we all had. Anyway, if you got anything you want to reveal, or anything you don't want to conceal, or anything, stick up your hand. Come on up here, right? Here you are. Come on, Mark.
You might think the only people these Wilkes know are people from Texas, but that's not true. Some years ago, we decided up in New Hampshire, they've lived as long in New Hampshire and in Massachusetts as they have anywhere, I think. At least it seems that way. But some years ago, we decided that we ought to split our property. Or, to tell the truth, I was tired of taking care of a tennis court. And so I put a line in between some land that I own up in New Hampshire, up in Lake Winnisquam, and it went around the tennis court and then back out to Black Brook Road. And I said to my wife, we've got to sell our property, one half of our property. And the youngest of the Wilkes, Bobby, happened to go to a grammar school in Lexington, Massachusetts, along with my youngest, Jennifer, they're both here tonight. And the elderly ladies thought that they could teach the kids how to cook. And I don't know if they taught them how to cook or not. I'm not sure. I can't. Yeah, Jennifer's a pretty good cook. So anyways, Glad, my wife,
Check Andy.
and Rosemary were in a cooking class together in this grammar school in Lexington, Massachusetts. I think it was called Hancock School, one of the oldest schools now. And some developer developed it into condominiums, and it wasn't me. Anyways, she was saying, gee, I guess Rosemary was saying, you know, we just would like to have a summer home on a lake somewhere. And again, I have to give Glad the credit. She sold our house some almost 20 years ago to the Wilks. And I've got to say that the Moores, myself, pretty difficult people to live next door to. But all we've had for years is a tennis court in between us. And Lowell will take care of that tennis court. His kids used to help him, but they don't help him anymore. And so Lowell still takes care of it. And anytime we wanted to play, it was beautiful. We could play anytime we wanted. I didn't have any responsibility. But I just want to say that both Glad and I are very happy to be here tonight. We couldn't have had the last, I don't know, 16 or 20 years, the greatest neighbors in the world. And I hope it goes on forever. And we're glad we're here. And congratulations, Rosemary and Lowell.
Now you could tell it so well that you and Rosemary. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Caroline Schaefer. We lived across the street from Rosemary and Lowell on General Amherst Road for 5 years. And Jill and Barbie were the best of neighbors and friends, and they were in each other's weddings. And we want to say on behalf of the Amherst, New Hampshire neighbors and friends who are here, congratulations and best wishes.
Go over there, so I have function for you.
Charlie, come on. I didn't see you behind that post there for a minute, Charlie. Now here's another anesthesia. Charlie Sloan, Dr. Charles Sloan. It's okay, Charlie.
Having arisen this morning at 4, I may go to sleep at 7. I'm kind of an in-law of this group. I became one in 1955 when I married Rosemary's cousin. And I didn't have a big family, so I inherited all this punch. And since then, I have done my very best to make every function, both Jarvis function in Hubbard and Wilkes function up here, that we could possibly make. And have thoroughly enjoyed every one and just love the people. And I think every one of you will agree with me that Rosemary and Lowell are the finest folks in the world. And one thing I will always remember and love Lowell for is that Lowell can come to Dallas and talk to me 2 years ago about something rather trivial, and he'll come back in 2 years and he'll ask me about it. He is a fellow who really listens. He doesn't carry on idle conversation. He listens and remembers everything you say to him. I don't know how you do it, Lowell. Anyway, as I say, I'm kind of an in-law to this family, and I brought my outlaw friend Sue with me tonight. So we're thoroughly enjoying the party. Thank you very much, and many more.
I tell you how Lowell can do it, Charlie. Because I told you he's tolerant, he's disciplined, and he's patient. At the wedding, just a year or two ago in Houston, whose wedding was it, sister? We went down there 2 or 3. The last one. Mary Bowen's wedding. Out there at the country club. Lowell had the misfortune, he didn't say a thing about it, but I bet he ached about it all the next day. He had one of the in-laws or outlaws or somebody from Tennessee who was a CPA, but in addition to being a CPA, he was a financial management expert. Now, who would he be telling Lowell about finances? But Lowell listened to that man unceasingly for about 2.5 hours. I was embarrassed after even hearing 10 minutes of it. He probably knew what he was talking about, whether he, you know, his old jokes weren't funny, and some of the things that he was telling probably Lowell had seen up at Harvard Business School or heard of 20 years before. But Lowell was compassionate, and he was listening, and he could tell you what the man had to say. So the next day, we put up with Lowell telling us about an hour just to tell you what the man had to tell him. Feel free to come on up here now. Ray, you got anything you need to add? Come on up, Ray. You may have a contribution to something here.
I find it interesting, all this conversation about people listening, and I'll tell you a little story. And this is something I use quite often. Most of you may know that I work for digital equipment, and I've been there for quite some time. And we're a company full of egos, and most people with egos talk a lot. And I have a tendency many times in meetings to listen to people who are talking a lot and give them a little short quip that my dad gave me many years ago. When he said to me, I never learned anything from talking. And, you know, listening to my uncle, it always never ceases to amaze me how much he knows. So you might say he's the point off the curve, but I have many times used that little quip that my dad gave me, that I never learned anything from talking, and I think that really quite well sums up his mentality and I think to a large degree how he's gained all the wonderful knowledge that he's gained. That's not what I want to talk about. I'm up here to represent the family, to give my mom and dad the golden anniversary gift that we selected for. As you can see, this touches me. We searched long and hard to try to find a gift that we felt would be appropriate. It is extremely difficult to choose a gift for my parents who basically have the things that they want. So, with the good help of my wife Ann, certainly my sister-in-law Linda, other family members, Eddie Colbeck, and probably most of all, my you want to talk? Probably most of all, my sister Barbara. I got the opportunity to kind of act as an executive producer on an activity and view things from maybe 20,000 feet away as we pull together a gift that we think says best what we want to say to our parents, and that's that we love you. So we have a gift for you, and we'd like you to come up and accept it. And the gift then has some activities that will follow on from there. We ask everybody to sit in their chair, sit back, listen, watch, and enjoy. We think you'll find it very nice.
Heard a lot of speeches, and we're so touched that we really don't know how to thank you. And many people have asked us, were we really surprised? We were not only surprised, we've been overwhelmed. And I have to quote a rather well-known person in this room, Billy Jarvis, who said, you can do without money, you can do without fame, you can do without recognition, but you can't live without friends. And that's the wonderful thing. Our family and our friends, and we talk about family values and all, but we live them, and we are inspired by them. And it's the greatest thing in this world, and we're just so thankful for everyone here, and thank the good Lord for all of our blessings. Thank you for being here.
I've been told a lot of times that the best things come in small packages. I'm certainly told that by all the women in my life every Christmas. So we have a small golden 50th wedding anniversary package that we'd like to give to my parents. And again, from all the children and all the relatives and all the friends, we love you.
Thank you. We love you. You know, I'm actually overwhelmed with this event tonight. It just couldn't please me more. And I couldn't have any of our more favorite people here, and to have so many of you, it's just truly a blessing. We do thank you for coming. The children are going to
That little girl with a big picture, she's spinning and eating a cake. That, got to get a picture of that.
The video, and if you will go sit down in your chairs. If you can get, we can get everybody who, we can get the Zavars and the others who are sitting behind that area over there. I think you'll enjoy this. You might like to watch this also.
I wish I liked it.
So bear with us now for about 3 or 4 more minutes because you haven't heard from a single grandchild. So we got a spokesman for the grandchildren. So give your attention now to Miss Tina Wilkes.
Hi, I'm Nana Napoleon's oldest grandchild, and
Hold on, Tina. Just a minute, please. Now listen. Let Let me have your attention. So you can hear a pin drop, because Tina's got competition, and we don't need any part. Okay.
Hi, I'm Nanny Pozzadolo's grandchild, and I just like to say that I have a lot of memories of things I've done with them over the years, up at the lake and at their house, and
Can't imagine anything to understand you.
congratulations and many more years together. You have a great family. Keep it all together, wonderful kids. And a good job keeping this a surprise for how long? 9 months? Trying to keep a baby a surprise for 9 months. Thanks again.
That's a great band.
Go to Texas number before we leave. What we've already done, but I'll be a Texas number. That's it.
The Navy, the midshipmen form a drum and bugle corps, plus the other side. So they say, well, it interferes with